Hey, and welcome back to A Beautiful Mess, everyone. Here is what's coming up in today's video. So before we jump into today's video, I'll give you a little update on this situation. If you watched last week's video, you'll know that my 15-year-old son accidentally swallowed a bullet. And after watching it and doing some imaging for 3 days, I believe it was, just tracking where it's gone in his body and making sure it wasn't getting stuck in his colon or perforating it or anything. He gave birth to a 224 Valkyrie on the morning of July 25th. We were so glad we didn't have to do surgery and that it just came out on its own. And for those concerned that we have ammo just laying around the house, I promise there's no need for concern. We don't. This is actually one that he just picked up at the firing range like a year ago and had just in his room because he thought it looked cool. And he knows now not to fidget with things near his mouth. So anyway, with updates out of the way, we'll get into today's video. Some of this footage may look familiar to some of you because I have used it in another video, because I have a few videos of this house. I've split it into a few different videos because I spent so much time over there. And this video, in fact, is kind of an update as well as the initial cleaning that I did. But anyway, I went back there last week just to see how Mom was doing on sorting and organizing some of the bins that I was not able to get to and couldn't really do much on my own because it was stuff that she needed to go through. So see all these bins here, she went through almost all of these herself and did an excellent job of sorting and organizing and getting rid of stuff. And anyway, I was very impressed, and I'll show you what she has done in the last, it's been a little over a month since I've been there, and she's accomplished a ton. So anyway, that's what this video is the cleaning of the kitchen and also just an update on what she's been doing this last month. And I will put a link to the other videos of this house so that you can keep it all straight and know that you're watching the same house, because somebody mentioned that they were getting confused on which house was which. So I'll make sure that I link those other videos of this house together so you know what videos all belong to this one. So in addition to Mom, Dad, and 4 kids, there are also 3 animal residents that live here, a parrot and 2 guinea pigs. And there were a couple of people that mentioned that they really like to meet the animal residents. So I will introduce you to Petey, and I actually forgot the guinea pigs' names, but here is Petey. Hi, Petey. In the parts of this video where I left the original sound, you might hear a very high-pitched squeaking, especially when I sped up the video, and that's just Petey in the background. And to me, it sounds like the smoke alarm when your battery starts to go out. That's what it sounds like. So that's just Petey. And then here's our 2 guinea pigs. Pretty cute. Okay, now to cleaning. So the cleaning of this part of the kitchen floor is actually several days before I even cleaned the rest of the kitchen. And the reason I did that is because I wanted a clean spot for the kids to sort and organize the craft supplies. So if you remember the video where I have the kids sorting out like markers and crayons and tape and glue and all that stuff, that was on this table, and I just wanted to give them a clean area for them to work while they were sorting that out. So anyway, this was while I was actually cleaning up the living room, and decided I was just going to hurry and sweep and mop this part of the kitchen so that the kids could come in and do that organizing. With this floor, I really should have taken my razor scraper and scraped up all this stuff before I started getting it wet, because once I got it wet and then used my squeegee to bring it all together like this, it created the nastiest concoction of stuff that looked like puke, and it really was kind of making me dry heave. So I don't love like wet food and bits and things like that. So there are some things that do gross me out. That is one of them. So later on in this video, I actually scrape it up first so that there's less of that wet, whatever, food and stuff on the floor. I'll try to talk as little as possible in these sections where I leave the original sounds, so you can just enjoy those scraping and scrubbing sounds, because I find that very enjoyable. And I know some of you do too. Oh, and the other reason I wanted to leave some of the original sound is because I'm talking to the homeowner here in just a minute and asking her about her husband's condition. And so this is just her describing it in her own words, which I thought was more interesting than me trying to explain it. Tell me what your husband's condition was, just so I remember like what to call it. Like,
at first it was a mitral valve prolapse that the doctor heard. And then when he went in, he found it was a genetic condition on his mitral valve. It's a valve it's the one, I can't remember if it's the one that goes out to the lungs or if it's the one that brings everything. Anyhow.
Yeah.
It's one in the back. It's a valve in the back. But they didn't find that until they actually got down and did the surgery.
Yeah.
But it's called mitral valve prolapse.
Okay.
But it got severe enough that he was fainting.
Yeah.
Even when he was coughing, because the sad thing is we caught COVID. We would have had the surgery sooner, but we caught COVID 1 week or less than a week after we found out he needed surgery.
Oh, yeah.
So,
oh, man.
And we know we didn't have it when we were at the hospital or when he was being tested, because it was my son, my 13-year-old who got it first.
Yeah.
And we tested ourselves that day when he had it, and we were negative. So
names were mentioned here, so I took out the audio. So I'm going to give you just a quick recap of the situation with this family for those that didn't see the first video where I went into more detail about that. So the mom in 2014 had an AFE, or an amniotic fluid embolism, and nearly died from it. It's a rare complication that comes after giving birth. And this was of her last child. And anyway, she went into a coma and had some anoxic brain damage. And some of the long-term effects of that include neurological impairment, memory loss, emotional and psychological effects, PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And because of all of that, she's just found it hard to manage day-to-day things. And Dad had to step in to try to pick up the slack, but as you just heard her describe, he's also had some issues, including that mitral valve prolapse, and he actually almost died. He had cardiac arrest and they had to revive him, and he's had some long-term effects from that as well. And so things have just been really hard to manage around the house, and they've had financial issues and just stressors on top of stressors, and it's just been a really difficult few years. So that's why she reached out for my help and has been working alongside me to try to get things back under control in her home. So all I'm using here is dish soap and baking soda.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't need to. We already did this one before. I know you have to go see. Oh, what's something? Oh, something. Okay. I got down here. Oh no. Nothing to wait to take care of it. What is it? Yeah, this one. Yeah, I don't have to do this. Sadly, this stuff right here is mostly DI stuff. Yeah? But I haven't used it in a while, so it's probably a lot of garbage.
So I have to take just a minute to thank you guys, my subscribers, for just your kindness and your generosity, especially this last week. I cannot even believe the amount of growth my channel has gotten over the last week, and the super thanks that have been given. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. I'm just so grateful to be able to be doing what I love, and that it's starting to pay off, and that I can hopefully do this more full-time in the near future, faster than I ever thought imaginable. So and that's all because of you guys. So I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I need to get her book. I haven't got her book.
I love it. So I discovered that my video camera ran out of battery before I actually finished this part of the floor, so I don't have the after footage of this exact part, but I did record me finishing another part of the floor to hopefully scratch that itch, because I couldn't just leave it at, halfway mopping. So you have to see some kind of finished product. So here's another area of the floor that I actually finished. It was really hard to find a space to put away all of this stuff. So in some of the after pictures, you'll see a lot of things on top of the cabinets, just because there's not a lot of cabinet space. And here to the left of the fridge, you can see that they've got that still storage thing to put some extra pots and pans. So without that, I don't know where else they would have put all these items. Sprayed this fridge with Lime-O-A to get rid of the hard water spots, but there was still some lime scale left, so I just used my scraper to kind of get rid of the rest of that. Of course, you don't want to use that straight on the stainless steel because it'll scratch it, but carefully you can use that in between those little cracks and crevices. And then I used my Wyman stainless steel polish to get it all shiny. And that link is in my description below if you guys want to get some yourself. And again, that's always another way you can support me is. So I didn't actually pull out the stove on this one, but I did pull out that drawer and just swept and got as much as I could out from underneath this. I didn't have time to, pull the whole thing out, and this was near the end of the day, and I was just needing to get it done quickly. But as soon as I pulled that drawer out, I was like, I need to do something about this because it will bug me to even know that it's there. So I did the best I could without pulling it out. I love organizing pantries. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this particular video about how I organize it because I plan on doing a whole other video on pantry organization when I start doing sort of middle of the week videos. So I'll go into more detail on how I sort those into different categories and such. But this is just kind of a quicker pantry organizing. Not the most satisfying pantry I've organized, but it was all right. So there's the before. And after. Look at all that peanut butter. I was running out of super clean, so I had to use some dish soap and baking soda on this in addition to the super clean. And by the way, this is the grease catcher that goes up above the stove that catches all the grease, and they get pretty nasty. So pretty important to clean those out every once in a while. This was one of the greasiest kitchens I had ever cleaned, but it also was one that I couldn't use a lot of heavy chemicals in because of the parrot. He's very sensitive to smell, so I ended up using a paste made out of baking soda, dish soap, and water. And that's what you see me sort of sponging on here. And then I let that sit for maybe an hour.
Yeah, well, good.
Come along. Oh, and the sponge I'm using is a Steel Scour Daddy. This took so much scrubbing and all that looking up and using my arms and shoulders. It was starting to really hurt. So I had to take a break for a little while, and I let it sit for maybe another hour while I was doing something else, and then came back to it, and it came off a lot easier at that point. So this is where I pause, and then I'll come back to it. Okay, this is my favorite part of this whole video, was scraping this off. It was super satisfying. And here's where I come back to finishing up that range hood. And then just a before and after of this area. So like I mentioned, since this is kind of a follow-up, I'm going to show you pictures of how I left the kitchen like a month ago. And so it'll still have a lot of those totes and things right there. This was just a couple of days ago when I came back to follow up and see what she'd been working on, and she'd gotten through so much. I was super impressed. This was sort of the last area of the kitchen that hadn't been gotten to yet, so I helped clean that up for her while she was still going through a few of the things that I'd left last month, because there was a lot. I mean, I was really impressed with all of the health issues she's had, and it really is a struggle for her to do this, so I was really very happy to see how much she was able to do on her own. So I can't wait to show you the final after photos. And by the way, I have no idea what's going on today, but I am struggling with my thought process. To get this voiceover done today has taken me so much longer than usual. I mean, it usually takes me a long time just because I normally have problems with getting my thoughts out properly, but today has been a struggle, let me tell you. Anyway, here are the before photos. Remember how big that pile of stuff was? And then just a before and after of each section of the kitchen. And that's a wrap of another video. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Remember to subscribe and like, leave a comment, hit that bell if you want to be notified of my next video. And if you want to leave a super thanks, a little donation for supporting the work that I do, that's always appreciated. So thanks again. You guys have a great week.